Welcome and thank you for tuning in today. If you are new to the show, this is Always Talking Ball. We are a college football podcast. First, some housekeeping notes. We are entering a new phase here on ATB. The reason I say if you're new to the show is because this is our first episode released on YouTube. So you may be listening as usual on Apple or Spotify right now. And as always, thank you guys so much for that. But head over to our YouTube channel and do us a favor, subscribe to it. If you're already watching on YouTube, you came across it somehow, hit that subscribe button towards the bottom right of your screen. Also, don't let the word subscribe scare you off because yes, it is free. It does not cost you anything. Share that YouTube channel with every football loving friend that you have. Let's get that subscribers up. Even if they say they're just fans of NFL, share our page because we're pretty sure we can convert them to love the game that we believe is the greatest sport in the world, which of course is college football. So, with this being fairly new for us in the video space, please be patient with us if things need to get ironed out over the next couple of weeks. We're just a couple of dads that really don't have a ton of experience in this space. As always, if you guys have any suggestions on things we could do better on YouTube, or really just the podcast in general, we're definitely open to ideas. But now that you are putting faces to names, don't be weirded out. You see us take a drink, maybe it'll be some water, maybe some coffee sometimes. Occasionally, there may be some bourbon poured out with some of these late night episodes after long days of working our regular jobs and parenting on top of that. Now, we've covered all that. We got all that out of the way. Let's just get into it. It is almost July, which means you better start getting ready. We are just 64 days away from seeing Georgia Tech take on Florida State in Ireland. A lot of the casual fans will start tuning back in to see what they've missed in the offseason. Also, the people who care about betting on college football, they're starting to gather some intel. Don't you worry. We're just about 6 or 7 weeks away from conference preview episodes. And with that comes our favorite win totals, where our guy Lance absolutely cleaned up last year, won some money. So please, again, share the podcast with everyone you think might be interested. Lance, where should we start today?
Let's hit the trail, man. Let's hit them. We've got some action on the recruiting trail lately. And I'm going to start off with the guy that's listed as the number one quarterback in the country is Juju Lewis. He's currently a USC commit, which that's a very loose term that these players have these days, is a commit. So Juju Lewis is committed to USC, and he has been taking visits recently. He was not too far from your backyard at good old IU at Indiana.
That's crazy.
It really is, man. That has everything to do with his relationships with the Sunseri family. Tito Sunseri has been a longtime mentor of his, which he is currently a coach on Indiana at Kirk Cincinnati's staff. And he also took a little visit to old Coach Prime out in Boulder with Colorado. I don't think that that's a serious one either, but one that has picked up some steam here lately. It was actually one that back in April that I told several folks to watch out for when Georgia basically just stopped recruiting Juju Lewis, and I thought that Auburn would be one to keep an eye on because Auburn was on his list, high on his list. And he's from Carrollton, Georgia, which is not far at all from Auburn. It's deep in SEC country. And he took a visit here recently to old brother Hugh down there on the plains to Auburn, and apparently it went really well. There's a lot of steam picking up that there is a possibility that Hugh Freeze and Auburn could possibly flip him from Lincoln Riley and USC. Obviously, I have no knowledge if that's 100% going to happen or anything like that. That's just something that is picking up some steam right now. And Auburn in general. Tyler, you knew this with old brother Hugh being a coach at your alma mater at Liberty. For those who don't know, old Tyler here is a alma mater of the Liberty Flames. He's always been able to recruit, man. And when he took that Auburn job, you knew that he was going to be able to, he's going to hit the trail quick. He made some hires in the offseason that was, some fantastic recruiting type hires. And so it's no shock that Auburn finished this past year 7th in the country in recruiting. in Hugh's first season as a coach at Auburn, and now they are currently in On3's recruiting rankings, ranked 7th in the country. They got a couple of top-notch commits here recently. A kid out of South Alabama that's a DB, that's a high-rated 4-star, and they're currently in the mix for Juju Lewis. They're currently in the mix for a 5-star receiver out of Mississippi, Caleb Cunningham. So just keep an eye on Hugh Freeze and that staff there at Auburn, man, to keep doing some damage on the recruiting trail. Are you shocked at all that Freeze is doing this already, is recruiting at this high of a level?
No, and I think quarterbacks definitely want to play for him, but quarterbacks also want to play for Lincoln Riley, right? So it's going to be a tall task. I mean, we saw USC lose a couple of 5-star D linemen this week. That's going to happen, especially when those guys are from the South. And now USC is recruiting with the Big Ten. They had a kid from Georgia, like Warner Robins, Georgia, who I'm sure every SEC power wanted, and USC had him committed. And it really wasn't any surprise. Like some of those defensive guys that they're hanging on to, it's not really much of a surprise that, they're getting lured away. And that'll happen on the defense. But yeah, Juju Lewis, I mean, Lincoln Riley's got a pretty good track record of Heisman Trophy winning quarterbacks and quarterbacks taken in the first round and number 1 overall, for that matter. So for him to be flirting with Auburn a little bit, Hugh Freeze is up there too with the best of the best as far as able, to coach quarterbacks. But we got to talk about Bama too. We got to talk about your Tide and how they're doing on the recruiting trail. I mean, if anybody thought, Kalen DeBoer was going to come in here and not be able to recruit, I mean, he certainly dispelled those myths. I think the thing was, and you kind of mentioned it, how everybody said, he's not going to be able to recruit. He's not going to be able to recruit. And a lot of it was Alabama fans. They were worried about that. I think the thing that a lot of them thought was he's not going to be able to recruit in the SEC. Like he recruits. He recruited good players. Like he discovered really good players who went to Washington, whether it's through the portal, getting Michael Penix there, or recruiting. But I think it was the SEC battles, and they didn't know if him translating from, Sioux Falls or wherever was going to be able to translate into the South and him to have those relationships like he is proving that he does.
Yeah, so first, he did an outstanding job of, I've said this many times, I'll say it again. Your ability to recruit, and overall now, it's not just recruiting, it's talent acquisition in general. Talent, because that's keeping players on your current roster. That's recruiting through the transfer portal. That's recruiting through the high school ranks. So I just personally call it now talent acquisition. You've got to be really good at talent acquisition. You've got to be able to hire an elite staff around you. He hired an elite, really good coaching staff around him and stocked the staff with multiple really good recruiters that have not only recruited in the South, but have recruited in different areas of the country. And no other than Courtney Morgan, who is his general manager in Tuscaloosa. And there's other programs that are starting to follow along and also hire general managers and follow in the same suit that Kalen DeBoer has had because it's worked so well for him. Courtney Morgan was with him at Fresno. He actually played at Michigan, and he was one of the main guys that was responsible for building that Michigan roster that you saw put on the field last year that won a Natty. And Courtney Morgan ended up going to Washington because he believes in Kalen DeBoer, and he was, again, huge responsibility in building that roster, what you saw at Washington. He's very good at finding those guys that may not be number 1 or number 2 or whatever at their positions, but that fits his type of mold of what he's looking for in a player at specific positions, etc. And it's obvious that that's already started at Bama. And, Auburn fans, I told you this. I mean, it was literally the nickname that Auburn gave him that other SEC schools started doing it as well. When Kalen DeBoer was hired, they were calling him Husky Harsin for referencing his, obviously, coaching at Washington Huskies and old Brian Harsin in the Brian Harsin era at Auburn. And I said on Twitter the other day, I said, he's looking more and more like Sioux Falls Saban instead of Husky Harsin right now. Here recently they picked up high-rated 4-star Keelan Russell out of Texas.
He's going to be a 5-star soon.
Yeah, he is. He's right now, currently, as we're sitting here recording this, in 2 days at the Elite 11 camp, he's ranked number 2 at the Elite 11 camp right now, and is just turning a lot of heads there. And what's more impressive about him, He's a track star athlete, but he's a thrower that also happens to be a track star athlete. He's not what you typically see in a lot of these dual threat kids that is a track star freak athlete that also can throw. He's a thrower that also is a track star athlete. So be interesting to see what he's going to end up doing. He was an SMU commit, which again, awful loss for SMU to have a guy like that committed to him, and he ended up going to Alabama. But they also just got a commit from the number one offensive lineman and the number one overall player, period, in the state of California. And he's like the number 4 or 5 offensive tackle in the country. There was videos being shared of him, like how athletic this guy is at 6'5", 290 on the basketball floor. But overall, just in the past 2 weeks, Alabama has signed 4 guys in the top like 55 overall in the country in the On3 recruiting ranking. So, yeah, they've got some momentum. Justice Terry, who that 5-star you just mentioned a minute ago, that was the number 1 overall defensive lineman in the country out of out of Georgia, that was committed to Southern Cal. He decommitted in the same day, like 5 minutes after he announced his decommitment. He announced that he was going on a visit to Tuscaloosa this coming up weekend. Most have that predicted to be a battle between, guess who? Georgia and Alabama. So, yeah, they've picked up some momentum. It's interesting to see if, like, we all know that, I mean, last year, Notre Dame, it happened with them. They had a lot of guys that were committed, a lot of guys that were, like, thought to be coming in. And then when it came down to actually putting pen to paper and signing day, it's just, you never know these days, man, with NIL and all the stuff being thrown at them last minute. It looks really good right now, and it seems very promising. But until it's actually signing day and they put the name on the dotted line, that's when we know if this staff in Tuscaloosa, led by Kalen DeBoer, is going to be legit or not in recruiting. But right now, it looks good.
You got any more news and notes for us?
No, man, not on the recruiting trail. I mean, it's just, you already mentioned the USC deal. I'm just going to say that a lot of the momentum that, like you and I talked about it a couple episodes ago, that the positions that optics-wise that people from a national perspective were looking at USC, like obviously they struggle on the line of scrimmage. That's especially on the defensive line. And they got 2 5-stars out of the state of Georgia. They brought in this revamped defensive staff. There were a lot of things pointing towards that, oh, maybe Riley and USC and staff, maybe they've really figured this out. And they're actually like really committing to that side of the ball. It's a really big blow optics-wise, man, when you lose 2 5-stars like that at the important positions, because I just feel like, man, if it was 2 5-star wide receivers, yeah, obviously that hurts. But, man, I feel like me and you could go play receiver for Lincoln Riley in that offense and that system, and they would figure out a way to get the ball and still score points and stuff. Yeah. Losing big-time line of scrimmage play right now for USC just doesn't look good optics-wise. Time will tell, but I do know, based off what I saw on social media, the USC fan base is a little bit in panic mode right now. And if they lose Juju Lewis, that's 3 5-stars out of the state of Georgia that they would have lost in the same recruiting class. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, they're in panic mode, but I mean, that's nothing new for USC fans, and that's something we can dive into in a later episode, just our love for some USC fans. But
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Pop quiz time. All right, it's a pop quiz for you. Excuse me.
Okay, pop quiz. Oh, hang on. All right.
All right, in the last 50 years, so since 1974, there have been 22 teams to win a national championship in college football. Can you name all 22?
All right, hang on, man. I'm gonna get out a little. It's gonna help me to actually write them down. So I'm putting them in my little notes app. By the way, letting you know, not Googling or anything. All right. All right, here's the ones I've got down. All right.
Okay.
Bama, Georgia. We'll start with the SEC. Bama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn, Florida, Tennessee. 2 new teams in the SEC, Texas and Oklahoma. What's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Notre Dame, 9. Clemson, 10. Florida State, 11. Miami 12, Ohio State 13, Michigan 14, USC, Pete Carroll's USC squad. I've got Penn State, Nebraska. Did Colorado win one?
They did.
Okay. And then I don't know how, I'll be honest with you, this is the one that I don't know how I remember, but for some reason I do just remember seeing it like on some deal I watched, but BYU.
Yeah.
That's all I got.
How many is that?
I think that's 19. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. That's 19. There's 3 that I'm missing, and I'm assuming you're going to tell me one that is so obvious.
Did you say Washington?
No, I did not say the Huskies. What year?
Early
Did you have the
90s.
year? Early
I think
90s?
it's 91.
Okay.
Could be wrong. Maybe 90 or 91. Georgia Tech.
Okay. I should have known that, man. I've been to Bobby Dodd multiple times. Well, growing up in the South, I went to multiple Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech games. I should have known that.
Yeah. And the last one I don't think you mentioned was Pittsburgh.
Pitt.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, when you said Georgia Tech, that was like, okay, yeah, that I knew that left that one off. But Pitt, I did not know that. Interesting.
1976.
Okay, so the ones I left off were Pitt, Georgia Tech, and who's the other one? Washington.
Not bad. 19 out of 22, not bad.
Yeah.
That'll get you an A- in most classes.
Okay, so personally, I thought most of mine I felt were pretty obvious, but the 2 that I'll pat myself on the back for is Colorado and BYU.
Yeah.
But yeah, I should have got Georgia Tech over those.
BYU back in the 80s, yeah. Colorado, yeah. Some good teams. So just a little fun pop quiz there. All right, let's get to talking a little bit about the 2024 season. First question I want to pose to you. If you had to put odds on it, we talk about gambling on here, talk about sports betting.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to put odds on it, what are the chances we see a matchup at least 3 times this season? So I'm talking Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Alabama, Georgia, Texas. Honestly, I can't even think of really many Big 12 or ACC matchups. Maybe Florida State, Clemson, but
nope.
With everyone doing away with divisions this year and just going top 2 teams in the conference, I mean, it's perfectly reasonable we could see Ohio State, Michigan play the final week of the regular season, turn around, play the very next week in Indianapolis at Lucas Oil Stadium, and then play 3 or 4 weeks down the road in like a semifinal or quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, it actually is very possible for the reasons you just said. And, we've already kind of like this, we didn't really had this discussion yet, but we knew this was possibly going to be a topic. So I was trying to think of some that I thought that could be on this. And I think the best chances of this happening would be Georgia, Bama, or Georgia, Texas. I think would be I know Georgia plays Ole Miss too. So Georgia plays 3 teams. It's going to be preseason top 10, but so those 3 are very possible. And then one that I think the example you just gave is what I think almost everybody would utter if they asked the exact same question you just did. They would say Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, and using those in their examples. But the example I'm going to give that I think that could be the most likely to happen is Ohio State and Oregon.
Yeah, that's what I would say too.
Yeah, I think Ohio State, Oregon is the one that is the most likely to happen because of how the seeding would probably work out in that scenario. And again, Georgia, Bama is very likely, or Georgia, Texas is very likely because of how these teams would be seeded. Because if I'm not mistaken, the quarterfinal match, if Georgia or Ohio State is the 1 seed, they're going to play the winner of 4 or 5, right?
Well, let's just get right into it. We're going to talk about this anyways. We're going to talk about Andy Staples' playoff, projected playoff bracket that he released a week and a half ago. Bruce Feldman came out with his pretty recently. Excuse me. Andy Staples has got Ohio State as the 1 seed, Georgia as the 2 seed.
Okay.
He's got Florida State at the 3 and Kansas State at the 4. And immediately everyone's like, I mean, Kansas State at the 4 seed? Like, what are you doing? What's going on? It's going to take a while for a lot of the casual fans and even some of like the people who really follow college football to understand that there are 5 automatic bids out of the 12-team playoff. So it's really not truly the 12 best teams. You're going to have your Big Ten and SEC champions most years, unless Clemson, of 2018 pops out, or Florida State of, 2013 pops out.
Or even Florida State of last year with Jordan Travis healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most years it's going to be Big Ten, SEC are going to claim the top 2 seeds, and then it's going to be the ACC or the Big 12. So in his projected playoff bracket, he's got Kansas State winning the Big 12. Therefore, they get the 4 seed. 5 seed is Alabama. He's got them playing a matchup at home against Boise State. Why Boise State and not Missouri? Because, again, the top group of 5 conference champion, whether it be Boise State, whether it be Memphis, whether it be Liberty, they will get
whoever.
They will get an automatic spot. In most years, it will be the 12 seed.
Yep.
You get a solid Boise State team one of these years. I mean, they may get bumped up to a 9 or 10. Like, that's pretty fair. They may even give them a home game and give them an 8 seed. Play that first round game on the blue turf. I mean, we've seen some pretty solid Boise State teams in the past, 15, 20 years, right? I mean,
you're right. It's been a while though. It's been a while.
Yeah.
I would be beyond shocked if we ever had a group of 5 team in the top.
I mean, they'd have to be very impressive. They would have to. I mean, like it'd be like Memphis going undefeated this year, going to Tallahassee week 3, and just laying it on the Seminoles, right?
Yep. I think Tulane plays. I think a couple of Power 5 squad. Not Power 5. Core 4. They play a couple of Core 4 squads. So they win those games and run the table in their conference. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah.
It actually. Okay, I'll stand corrected. It could happen.
So he's got that in a first-round game. Another first-round matchup up in Eugene. Wouldn't you like to see this one? Tennessee going to Eugene and taking on the Oregon Ducks. That would be fun.
Sign me up.
He's got 7-10 matchup, Texas versus Ole Miss in Austin. 8-9 matchup, Michigan hosting Notre Dame. How sick would that be to see Ohio State, Notre Dame, or Ohio State, Michigan, and that quarterfinal is probably going to be in the Rose Bowl. Like Ohio State, Michigan in the Rose Bowl would be just something else.
It would. Ohio State, Notre Dame, like you just say, either one of those in the Rose Bowl would be insane.
Yeah. Bruce Feldman came out with his. He's got Ohio State 1, Georgia 2, Florida State 3. Then he's got Utah 4. So Kansas State, Utah.
I think that's what you and I would have, isn't it? Utah 4. Yeah.
Texas 5. Hosting Memphis. He's got Oregon at 6 again, hosting Miami. He's got Ole Miss at 7, hosting Penn State. And then look at here. He's got Alabama coming up to South Bend in the dead of winter to face the rough and tumble Notre Dame Fighting Irish.
Bama, Notre Dame.
They don't want none of that snow. They don't want none of that
Bama, Notre Dame, and the Golden Dome, dude. We'd have to go to that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Our wives would hate us for how much money we'd have to spend on those tickets, but
oh yeah. Okay, so back to Andy Staples' playoff projection. Here's what I want to ask you. So it looks like he's got in this bracket. I'm assuming he has Georgia versus Alabama in the SEC championship game.
Yep.
So who do you think has the easiest path here? Like Alabama beats Boise State, then they get to play Kansas State in like the Cotton Bowl or wherever.
Yep.
Georgia, for winning the SEC championship game, sure, they get a bye, but they're gonna have to play most likely Texas again.
Yep. Texas or Ole Miss, either one. That's going to be really, really good football teams.
So, I mean, don't you agree that Alabama will be set up in the much better position to go to the semifinals, right?
Yeah, and again, like I think it's going to be incredible for the opportunity to get to host a playoff game.
Yeah.
Like when this was created, you called it pretty quick that 5 seed, because a lot of people were using. I mean, so many people just jumped at the opportunity to start trashing Notre Dame. The fact that they weren't in a conference, they never were going to get one of those top 4 seeds, and people were like, ragging
Yeah,
them.
the whole thing about Notre Dame not playing a conference championship game is absolutely null and void now. Like that can
Yep.
never be used again because they're never ever going to get a bye.
Nope. And technically, they're getting a bye by not having to play in a conference championship game.
Yeah.
And then if they do, like, so yeah, it right now, if it is that group of 5 team that's going to be in that 12 spot, if you're a core 4 team at the 5 seed getting to host a group of 5 team on your home field in a playoff game, the odds of you winning that game are extremely high. Like the line in Alabama, Boise, and Tuscaloosa would be outrageous.
We saw what happened with Oregon Liberty last year.
Right. It would be outrageous. Then you get the chance to play basically the worst core 4 conference champion. And then but obviously having to play the number 1 overall seed, yeah, I mean that's tough. But to win a national championship, you're gonna have to play one of those teams anyway, more than likely. So yeah, I mean I think in this scenario, that 5 seed, man, is a sweet spot. No doubt about it. And like you said, Georgia getting the bye, I mean, yeah, okay. But then they'd have to draw like Texas or Ole Miss, or whoever they're going to play in that scenario is more than likely going to be like this year, like this coming up year. That's more than likely going to be a team like a Texas, Ole Miss, or Oregon, or Tennessee, or Penn State, or Notre Dame, or a Michigan. Like it's a really good football team, like a great football team.
Alabama would be favored over Kansas State, no doubt.
Yes,
and they would be more of a favorite than Georgia over Texas.
Yeah,
like that would be a much closer spread. It's kind of the same thing with the Big Ten. So I'm assuming they've got Ohio State playing Oregon in the Big Ten championship.
Mm-hmm.
So Oregon gets that higher seed, and they get to play Florida State, albeit probably a tougher opponent than Kansas State. But I mean, they still get an easier path, in my opinion. I mean, wouldn't you almost want to be? I mean, you don't get the bye, but I'm just trying to see who's like set up the best here. Like,
I mean, the 5 and the 6 seed in this scenario is set up pretty nice.
I think in most scenarios, in most years, because of what we just lined out with the ACC and the Pac or the Big 12.
Yeah, the only way it's not is obviously if that Florida State, that Clemson, I'll even throw it in there, Miami, because of how they're recruiting, is if those teams happen to be like a Florida State from last year with a healthy Jordan Travis, or like the Clemsons with the Trevor Lawrences and Deshaun Watsons, etc. Like if that's the ACC champion, that team, then yeah. But most years, yeah, I mean that's a pretty, you got a pretty solid draw there. But you're right, man. It's just again, people are going to have to wrap their heads around this, and they're going to be like, well, so and so's actually like, wait, Texas is actually ranked 4th. Why aren't they the 4 seed? There's like the key phrase is seeding. There's going to be a completely different point of view from seeding and ranking from here on out. But again, to the original question before we started this, the 3 times, I think absolutely it can happen, and it won't shock me if it happens pretty early on. Because again, in this scenario,
go ahead. I was going to say, how long do you think it'll take to where we actually get a seeding process to avoid rematches? How do you think it will ever happen, or do you think you don't think it'll ever happen?
No, I don't. I really don't, because I just think that you're getting dicey when it comes to that. And the excuse they always use is like, well, in the NFL, nobody cares that, we get so-and-so this many times. And that's honestly, that is true. I just think our brains are so wired as college football fans, so opposite of how the NFL works. A lot of your diehard, long-time college football fans, especially the older generation of fans, they don't want the like in the NFL, the team that wins 9 games ends up making it to the playoffs and stuff like that. They don't want these 2-loss teams and multiple loss teams having a chance to play for a national championship. They don't want to see these teams play each other 3 times or 2 times, even 2 times and stuff. But man, look, give me the best, whatever it may be. Even if it is 3 times, maybe after it happens, I'll think different. But I'm actually of the opinion that, like, dude, that Ohio State-Michigan game last year was so sick. If I'd have got a chance to watch them play again, sign me up.
Do you think it dilutes the regular season matchup, though? I mean, I know they hate each other and they want to beat each other, but if they are, like, say they're already locked in, say they're both 11-0, like they were last year, they're already locked in to meet each other December 7th in Lucas Oil Stadium. What does that do to the November 30th matchup?
Now that scenario, it could, man, it could.
It's the same thing last year, right?
Yeah. So I don't know that it dilutes it from those 2 teams playing each other's perspective.
Yeah.
And those fan bases, because of what you just said about that, how just like absolutely just hated that rivalry is. But from a national perspective, from fans outside of those 2 teams with the interest in that game, it definitely could. Knowing that they're just going to turn right around and play again the next week, yeah, it could.
Let me pose another scenario for you. Miami is 10-1 in the ACC, right? And they're going to the final week. They're locked into the ACC championship game, and they win that game, automatically in the playoff, automatic bye. They're not, playing for seed. I mean, say they're even 9-2, right? But maybe they lost the Florida opening week, and they've only lost 1 ACC game, and they're locked in. They're going to Syracuse the final week of the season. Do we see them rest players?
I think you are going to see that. And here's the thing, man. There's a lot of people that will poke the chest out and act like that's not a thing, that's not going to be a thing. Like they'll give you the old boomer take of, nah, these boys won't play football. Like they will run out there and play hard, and they play every snap. All that. No. In that scenario, yeah, absolutely. Because how would you explain? Okay, how would you explain? Like in that scenario you just gave, Cam Ward goes out there and breaks his leg, tears an ACL, has a terrible injury. The Jordan Travis situation last year at Florida State. Like, wasn't it the Samford game? It was, wasn't it? The Samford game? Yeah.
Well, they're playing Samford or North Alabama or someone, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Samford, North Alabama, yeah, one of those type teams. It was like a super small school like that. So, like, in using that same, and it was like one of the last games, second to last game of the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if they're already, and those are 2 non-conference games that Florida State had at the end of the year. So if they're already locked in, or whoever it is already locked into their conference championship game, yeah, I do think that you could start seeing stuff like that.
Same scenario, but Cam Ward is absolutely lighting it up, and he's leading the Heisman race.
I'm resting him.
Yeah, but we've seen Mario Cristobal make some dumb decisions.
Dumb decisions, dude. Dumb. But, and that's also, too, though, why, like, look, if you're a Heisman voter and you decide not to vote for a guy because he didn't play in a game like that, then you should seriously lose all your voting privileges.
Yeah, I mean, we see Mahomes sit out week 17 or week 18 most seasons, and, he's going to win that MVP. So same with Lamar last year.
Yeah, but I do think you'll start seeing it. And that will be, dude, can you imagine? The people be coming out of the people that are against this 12-team playoff will be coming out of the woodworks when something like that happens. Like, see, it dilutes the regular season. It dilutes, like, every game doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, our boy Josh Pate.
Yeah, they'll be coming out of the woodworks for that. And we've never seen it before. This is the first year. It's going to be a great case study right out of the gate. But I feel like this is a perfect segue leading into the next part of this discussion. There is going to be, in my opinion, more interest in this sport than ever before. And there's going to be more regular season games that's going to matter because of more teams. are going to have a chance to seriously make a run at making this 12-team playoff. So I texted you last year, and we actually talked about it on the podcast at this time. Dude, it was like, what, first week in November? I think there was 8 teams that truly had a chance.
Yeah.
At that point, you have a whole month left of the season, dude. And there are so many fan bases that are just like, well, we got no chance now. We're out of it. I mean, but again, we're wired as college football fans, though. They're like, the fan interest is still there. But from a national perspective, so like your casual fan's not going to want to tune in as much to whoever 2 teams are playing each other if they have no chance to for postseason type deals. Yeah. Now you're going to be sitting there, and there's going to be so many games, so many weeks of the season late into the season where there's going to be, well, again, case study, like we think this is the way that it's going to be, that there's going to be a lot of teams that's still going to have a shot to get in this dance. And I just think that creates significantly more interest in a lot of these fan bases. And so that leads me into this question. I asked you this the other day because I just thought of it out of nowhere and I have a pen and paper right here that I wrote down because I was honestly shocked myself at the answer. I asked you and a few other friends the same question. How many teams going into the season, as we sit here this evening in middle of the summer, how many teams realistically going into the season can say their fan bases can realistically say that their team has a chance to make the 12-team playoff this year? Because the answer for me was staggering.
Yeah, so I've got a list too, and this is teams that I think realistically can make the college football playoff. Yeah. I didn't go by, all the Indiana fans in my backyard saying like, "Oh, Kurt Cignetti, he's doing big things." We got a chance at Cignetti this year. Yeah. So
do you have it listed by conference by any chance?
I came up with a list. I've got 31 total teams. I think that's lower than your number.
I had 30. I had 30 Power 4 teams, and Notre Dame's included in this, obviously, in the Power 4, Core 4. Even though they're not in the Core 4 conference, they're included.
Okay, so I've got 30. I've got 32 teams.
Okay. I've got 30. I've got 30 Core 4 plus Notre Dame teams. And then I have 8. I even went, us, man, we throw the G5 some love here. I've got 8 group of 5 teams. Did some studying on some G5 teams. There's more than a lot of people just going to tell you that. I'll give you an example. Everybody's just going to tell you that it's just UTSA, Memphis, and Tulane in the AAC. Keep an eye on South Florida and Tom Herman's FAU squad this year. But those were a few teams that I thought of. But keep going. Go ahead. Give me your teams.
Okay, so I've actually got 34 now. I've got 34. I added a couple when you're thinking of it.
Let's go by conference, man.
All right, so let's start on the ACC. I've got 6 teams in the ACC.
Me too.
We got Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Louisville, NC State, and SMU.
You don't have...
I don't have Virginia Tech.
Okay, that's the only one we differed on then. So
you have that? You don't have SMU?
I don't, but I will say this: so for anybody listening, watching, I gotta keep not saying just listening. Anybody listening and watching, if you win your conference in the Core 4, you're in the playoffs. Remember that. Number 2, if you're in the Core 4 and you have a chance. In the Big Ten and SEC, if you're 10-2, you're probably getting in. More than likely, you're getting in now. That's almost a guarantee at this point, unless you have just so many that are 10-2, which is possible. But ACC and Big 12, it's a little less likely if you're 10-2, but it's still possible if you're 10-2. As we sit here today, it is possible and realistic. So I've got Virginia Tech because if you look at Virginia Tech's schedule, there is a path, a very realistic path that the Hokies could go 10-2 with their schedule this year. I didn't have SMU there because of that, but I will admit, if I've got Virginia Tech there, I probably should have SMU there. So,
I mean, if you look at the odds to win the conference,
yeah,
those 7 teams are cut away from the rest of the conference. I mean, those 7 teams all at 16-1 or better, and then it's Syracuse at 40-1.
I just don't, and this may not be fair. This may not be fair to Rhett Lashley and the Ponies, but what I'm about to say, but because this has nothing to do with them, it's just a scenario. But what happened last year in the Big 12 with all of the new squads that joined and how they struggled last year, I just can't get that out of my head is the only reason I probably don't have SMU, which may not be fair to them.
Yeah, it's probably not, but I think we're looking at it from the fact, and a lot of people are looking at it like they just look down on the ACC so much when like this was like a freaking good conference for a very long time. They've had some down years, and I brought it up to you, like every single sport in college, they have like down regular seasons, it seems, and then they tear it up in the postseason.
They really do, man. They really, when you pointed that out the other day, like just happened in baseball, basketball, like this past year, and you just trashed the ACC.
Yeah.
And then they go in the NCAA tournament and just clap cheeks. And now football last year, they had a winning record against the SEC. They've done well. And I'll admit this. I know we're kind of, but I don't care. It's our podcast. Do what we want. This is the most depth that I've seen in a couple of years and the most wide open that I've seen the ACC. It's not just Florida State and Clemson. NC State is real this year. They're legit. Louisville can for sure. I mean, Jeff Brom has probably is incredible receivers. We don't know what Tyler Shuck's going to be at quarterback, but Louisville could win that conference for sure. They just played for the ACC championship last year.
Yeah.
In year one. So
with Jack Plummer.
Right. So it could happen. All right, but keep going.
Okay. Big Ten next.
Okay.
I've got 6 teams from the Big Ten. I've got Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, USC, and Iowa.
Okay, I've got 5. The only one I did not have on there was USC. But
okay.
But again, I will say if I've got Iowa on there, it's fair that I should have USC on there because if USC goes 10-2, then they're probably a playoff team. I just do not have them going 10-2.
Yeah,
I just don't. But as it sits here today, the exercise is who realistically. So I'm not saying SMU is realistic, but I will say USC is realistic. So I'm down with you on that one. But again, for the people listening to this going, Iowa.
Right.
Iowa played for the Big Ten championship game last year.
Yeah.
Iowa's schedule this year. Look at it, folks.
It doesn't get much tougher because they're out of the West. I mean,
they played for a Big Ten championship game last year, averaging 15 points per game, second to last in the entire country. Only worse than them was Kent State. If Iowa has any bit of competent play on offense at all, like I'm talking about even like below competent, like just okay, they can go 10-2 with their schedule. They can.
Yeah. I mean, what about, the old fishbowl has moved up north to the Pacific Northwest. No Washington. They can't rebound this year.
No.
Okay.
Not this year.
Okay. Let's move on to the SEC. Let's see how many teams I've got. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 SEC teams.
I've got 9.
And again, this is who I think.
Yeah.
I know Auburn fans are going to think that they can make the college football playoff. Oklahoma fans are probably going to think they can, but they've got a loaded schedule. So I've got Georgia, Texas, Bama, Ole Miss, LSU, Tennessee, and Missouri.
Okay.
Missouri's got cakewalk. They play one team on their schedule that has an over-under win total of over 9.5.
Yeah, man, Mizzou definitely got a great draw, schedule-wise. No doubt about it. Mizzou got a great draw. Texas got a great draw. Ole Miss got a great draw. LSU got a great draw, schedule-wise. Schedule-wise, those teams got the best draws. So I've got UGA, Bama, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Mizzou, LSU. Then I've got 2 on here that'll shock you.
I could probably guess. I mean, A&M.
Yeah. And the reason being, if the game that you're going to, by the way, which that's going to be a sick game, man. That's a bucket list type stadium to go to. And open the season, Tyler here is going to College Station to Kyle Field. to arguably the most beautiful stadium in all of college football to see Notre Dame lock up with like Riley Leonard, the Riley Leonard era, the Mike Denbrock era of Notre Dame to lock up against Riley Leonard's old coach there at Texas A&M, game 1 of the season. That headlines week 1, pretty much them and Georgia Clemson. And if A&M could get that game, if you look at their schedule, it is extremely realistic to say that team is a 10-2 football team.
Okay.
So
I apologize. I had 7 at the top, and then I did add at 24 and 25 on my list because I don't have them grouped out. I'm just trying to count them out here.
Mm-hmm.
I did have A&M and Oklahoma.
Okay, I got A&M.
So I did have them on there. So apologies to all Oklahoma fans out there. If you do get through your slog of a schedule and get maybe even 9 wins, but 10 wins, you should be in the playoff.
Yeah, Oklahoma's schedule is brutal, but like that is the team since we did our little post spring ball power rankings of each conference, that is the number 1 team that I have from that date till now after diving into rosters and coaching staffs and just everything else, like really diving into these teams. Boomer is a team that is going to be a problem year 1 in the SEC. And I'll just say this, the perception and reality aspect of this. Texas coming into the SEC, first off, the schedule that Texas got compared to Oklahoma, I guess, did the Big 12 like jump into, like Greg Sankey? Like, did they like swap places with Greg Sankey to try to like take care and coddle Texas year 1, like the Big 12 always did?
Yeah.
Because Oklahoma's schedule is just a backhand of the face compared to Texas. It's unbelievable the difference. But the perception is that Texas is just some huge national championship contender, and Oklahoma is just some chopped liver team that's coming to the SEC, and hopefully they'll just be able to survive. I mean, Oklahoma just beat Texas.
Yeah.
Won 10 games last year.
I mean, if Jackson Arnold turns out to be an absolute stud,
yeah,
they're going to be in good shape.
Right. And if you compare, like, again, everybody acts like that Brent Venables is just average, maybe not even that good of a head coach. In year 2 as a head coach, he won 10 games, which was much better than Sark's year 2 at Texas.
And their defense is very solid. Stutzman's back at linebacker, and I was listening to Mac and Cube the other day where they said that Oklahoma probably has the best DB room in the country. They were saying, comparing it to Georgia and everything, and Malachi Starks is there, but Billy Bowman in the defensive backfield for Oklahoma, like, I don't know much about Oklahoma's backfield. I'll be honest with you, the defensive backfield, but
me either.
For those two guys, Cole Kubelik and Greg McElroy,
I respect what they think about ball.
Exactly, to sit there and say that they think Oklahoma might have the best DBs in the SEC year 1 was telling me something for sure.
Well, Brent Venables was arguably the greatest defensive coordinator of our lifetime.
Yeah.
At Clemson. For the defenses he put on the field at Clemson year after year. They literally led the country almost every single year in the most important categories, tackles for a loss, points per game, blah, blah, blah. That dude can coach defense. Like, whatever you want to say about, like, some of the goofiness and antics and, like, some of the Dabo-esque type stuff that he pulls, like, that's fine. That has nothing to do with him actually coaching football. That dude can coach defense. He's got guys that are now going into year 3 in that system on his defense at Oklahoma. So, yeah, man, you and I both, we're huge believers in Jackson Arnold and the other youngin in the SEC, Nico Iamaleava. And Jackson Arnold and that receiving core led by new Deion Burks that transferred in from Purdue. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I've come around a lot on them and thinking that they are one of those teams that we can include in this as far as playoff squad.
Okay. And so we both got Notre Dame, obviously. I don't know. Yep. I never know where to group Notre Dame. I mean, should we group them with the SEC? Should we group them with the ACC? They're in Big Ten country. I don't know where to put them.
We'll give them your wish, bro. We'll just group them all on their own because, that's just what they are. They're all on their own. But I will actually defend and say this. They should not join a conference at this point. Like, absolutely should not. There is no incentive for them to do that unless college football literally somehow actually makes them, why would they? That makes no sense for them to actually do it.
Yeah.
I used to get frustrated about it, but the more I've come on, I guess maybe being friends with you,
Yeah.
has maybe come around on that.
Yeah. The schedule this year, we've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. I'll say that. It's very nice.
Mm-hmm.
They got A&M, they got Florida State, they got USC.
And Louisville.
Really,
That's
Louisville,
the four.
Yeah, not a lot in between there, though.
That's the
really,
four.
I mean, they should really, they're going to be worried. Obviously, they're going to, there's always, they can always pull an upset, like they went to Louisville last year. Turned out to be a 10-win team, but, that's the thing. But Notre Dame's going to have Al Golden's he runs like a pro-style defense, right? And he's been there for a couple of years with Marcus Freeman. They've got, I believe, 6 graduate transfers. And so, like, 5th or 6th year guys that are playing defense for him. Like, these dudes can run a pro-style defense. Their DBs are top 3 in the country.
I was going to say, you can make an argument that between Ohio State, Georgia, and Notre Dame.
Yeah, and apparently
that's your 3 best. Yeah. But those 3 that I just said are arguably your 3 best defensive back units in the country. Yeah. And Irish still have dudes on the defensive line.
Yeah, and they're going to be, running back will be good. Riley Leonard should be able to thrive in Mike Denbrock's offense. The wide receivers should be better. Tight ends, always a solid, matchup for them on the offensive side of the ball. Offensive line's usually a strong suit, but surprisingly, or maybe unsurprisingly, that's the biggest question mark this year. I got faith that they'll be able to figure it out. I mean, it's not like they've been, not recruiting dudes. Like they've got these guys who are unproven. So I think they'll be in good shape. But let's move on to the Big 12, America's Conference, man.
Go, man.
It's our conference. I've got, it looks like 6 teams.
Oh,
I got Utah, Kansas State, 2
Yeah.
front runners. I got Kansas and Arizona. I got Iowa State and old Mike Gundy's Oklahoma State Cowboys.
I can't believe that you. So, all right, this was one of mine. I actually put this on our Twitter the other day to somebody. Teams that are being slept on the most going into the season. This team is up there. This team won 9 games last year. Okay? This team returns almost everybody from that 9-win team. This team, in those 9 wins, of their few losses that they had, they lost on the road at Oklahoma. Okay? They lost on the road game 1, where they gave this team a war until the final, 2 possessions. They went on the road to Penn State and gave Penn State a game 1 of the year. That was 2 of their losses. And they had a 3rd loss where they had a double-digit lead late in the 4th quarter and ended up giving up like a 60-yard Hail Mary, walk-off Hail Mary on a fluke loss. That was 3 of their losses. Their 4th loss was to the team that played for the Big 12 championship in Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
West Virginia is, in my opinion, every bit of a team that needs to be looked at that can compete for a Big 12 championship this year. I've got all the teams that you said. I've got Utah, K-State, Kansas. I've also got West Virginia. I got the team that you're not going to want to touch this year because they burned us so bad last year. I get it. In Texas Tech. But hey, everybody jumped on them last year. Everybody's off the bandwagon this year. Probably means they're going to win more games this year. I've also got the team that, one of the teams that won the transfer portal. I've got Gus Bus and UCF. Again, man, I've seen what this guy can do with a big-time dual threat type quarterback and some tailbacks. UCF is with KJ Jefferson and Penny Boone and RJ Harvey. We've talked about it at nausea this offseason about what a great combination that is. They got some solid receivers. I mean, they've got some dudes. So I've got UCF. I've got Arizona. I've got Oklahoma State and Mike Gundy. And I've got the team that has the most returning production in the entire country in Iowa State.
Okay.
I just want a chance to say this since I'm on video for the first time. We are Rocco Beck Stan podcast here. If we could have Rocco Beck Iowa State jerseys, if something happens and this podcast ever makes it to where a lot of people watch this, Iowa State fans, throw us some Iowa State Rocco Beck jerseys. I will rock it on every episode, and I'm not even an Iowa State fan. But we are big fans of Rocco Beck on this show. But I've got Iowa State as another one too. So I've got 9 Big 12 teams because, again, If you win your conference, you get in. All 9 of those teams, in my opinion, have a realistic shot to win it, to win the Big 12.
Yeah, and that shows you. I mean, that conference is going to be it's heavy at the top, right?
Mhm.
Utah and K-State are obviously the favorites, and they don't play each other in the regular season.
Mm-mm.
I think they're going to be favored in all 12 of their games because of that.
Yeah.
But that could be the chaos conference for sure. So
It
that
could.
one will be fun to watch. They're going to have some Friday night matchups. I mean, it's going to be fun.
It is, man. Hey, I'm just going to say this now and get it out there. Sneaky, good game, great game, week 1. It's being kind of just under the radar right now, not being mentioned. We just talked about him just now, West Virginia. James Franklin and Penn State going on the road to Morgantown.
Yeah.
Penn State fans, get ready. That's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Heading over to Morgantown.
Yeah.
That will be a really good football game.
Yeah. Big 12 is also doing because of all the conference realignment, they are keeping some matchups, and then they're counting them as non-conference matchups, like Baylor's playing Utah, but it's not. And they're both in the Big 12 now. It's not a conference matchup. Arizona playing Kansas State, solid matchup, right? Number 2, number 3 team in the conference doesn't count as a conference.
That's
matchup.
news to me. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, and that's
wow.
a Friday night. That's a Friday night game in week 3, I believe.
Okay.
So that'll be like a standalone game. It'll be fun to watch. So
that's legit.
Real quickly, let's get to G5. So one G5 team gets a spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess there's maybe a 1% chance, 0.5% chance that a couple, awesome G5 teams get, who knows? But I've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 G5 teams. I've got Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're the front runner right now.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
UTSA.
Mm-hmm.
Tulane.
Yep.
James Madison.
We don't have them.
And the Liberty Flames.
Okay. So, God, man, this disrespect to one of the most beautiful backdrops in the fall there is Boone, North Carolina, man, and the Appy State Mountaineers, man. Come on. But, no, that's a good list. JMU's the only one I don't have just because, obviously, they lost a lot from that squad last year that was so good, and their coach, coaching staff, quarterback, the whole 9 yards. But I've got UTSA, Memphis, Tulane. I've also got USF and FAU on my list. I've got Appy State, I've got Liberty, and I've got Boise. If I had to say a favorite right now, I would definitely say Boise.
Yeah.
Liberty probably because they're going to win almost probably all their games.
Again, they play the worst schedule in the nation, I believe. So.
Yep. And in the
they've got a matchup, I think, week 5 at App State. So if you're looking for a good G5, matchup to watch at App State in week 5 should be a good one.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say about this, Memphis is probably the best team in the AAC, but their schedule might be what keeps them out. Like they have road games like at Tulane. I think they play at UTSA. They play at Florida State. So
we'll see if they get respect for that Florida State, because last year SMU, they played TCU in Oklahoma and they're non-conference. And because they lost those 2 games and they went 10-2, they won the AAC. Liberty went undefeated and got the nod over them. And like we were talking about, why would they schedule those games now? Just go 13-0 and you get a spot in the playoff.
Yeah, agreed. Until they show that the strength of schedule matters, there's no reason not to do it. But man, this was fun.
Yeah. I'm glad we got to do it first time on YouTube. So appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, to our Apple and Spotify listeners, thank you guys. We can't thank you enough for helping us grow this over the past 10 months or so. As we said, college football, it's getting closer, almost to July. That's kind of when people start, coming out of the woodwork, start talking more about football, start wanting to listen to some podcasts and all that. Direct them to Always Talking Ball on YouTube, on Apple, on Spotify. Follow us all on our social media handles down there to the bottom right of the screen. And we appreciate you guys. And until next time.